Assalamu alaikum. This is lecture number 23 of Global Business Management. Today's topic is Global Marketing and Product Development. We have three learning objectives for today's lecture. The first one is understand why and how it may make sense to vary the attributes of the product among countries. The second one is appreciate why and how a firm's distribution strategy might vary among countries. And the third learning objective is to understand why and how advertising and promotional strategies varies among countries. Before we start talking about today's topic, first we quickly go through the main points of the last lecture. In the last lecture we had discussed about the firm's competitive advantage and technological know-how. And we discussed that when a firm's competitive advantage is based on a priority on the technological know-how, the firm should avoid licensing and joint venture agreements unless it believes its technological advantage is only transitory and that it can establish technology as a dominant design in the industry. Main thing is we had discussed the situations when joint venture is okay and when the licensing is okay, is a most preferable mode of entry into the foreign market. We had discussed several scenarios in which licensing was best suitable mode of entry, and when the joint venture, and in what circumstances firm has to choose the greenfield investment. And we had discussed when a firm's competitive advantage is based on the management know-how, the risk of losing control over the management skill is not high, and the benefit from getting greater use of brand name is significant. These were the main scenarios when management know-how is not the competitive advantage of the firm, like that Japanese or German automobile industries. They have this management know-how advantage, and it's not suitable for them to do the licensing. Rather, what they can do, they can adopt the FDI or greenfield. Within FDI, they can do the greenfield investment or the merger and acquisition. Okay, firms can establish a wholly owned subsidiary in a country by using greenfield investment. What is a greenfield investment? Building a subsidiary from the ground up. This is one type of FDI, and the second one is using a acquisition strategy. Firm acquiring acquisition are the attractive because they are quick to execute. They can enable firms to preempt their competitors, and acquisition may be less risky than the greenfield ventures. You mean here what we compared the greenfield investment versus the merger and acquisition. Explicitly we talked about the when the firm acquired another firm, and we did discuss the advantages of the acquiring mode of internationalization is it's more quicker to execute. They enable firms to preempt their before the competitor would they adopt the strategy. Firms will do this. They will initiate and they will take the step before their competitors. The last point was it's less risky compared to the greenfield investment because it requires you are acquiring a running business, a business that's already established its market, it's already linked with the suppliers and distributors and already have this customer base and market capitalization. And therefore it's less risky as compared to greenfield investment, because in the greenfield investment as compared to the acquisition, they have to start from the scratch, and they have to build their own manufacturing plant, then they have to establish their own distribution channels, suppliers, marketing strategy, all these things, all the processes, they have to start from the scratch. Okay, but there are certain scenarios when the acquiring or acquisition is not the suitable option. The acquiring firm overpays for the acquired firm. The first one, culture of the acquiring and the overpay. The first chances might be a firm is going to overpay, cannot judge the actual price or the actual market position of that firm, and might be one firm pay more to the acquiring firm because of the miscalculation. The second form is culture of the acquiring and acquired firms clash. Might be in the future they intend to work together, but because of the cultural clash, there is chances that their manager organizational culture are not in line with each other. And as we know that when the organizational cultures are not in line with, they cannot integrate with each other at a greater scale, and because of disintegration, there will be a conflict within the management and decisions, which will affect negatively on the performance of the company. And the third one is when attempts to realize synergies into the roadblocks and take much longer than foster. Mean again the integration of synergies, it takes longer time when two companies are going to integrate with each other, or they are going to merge with each other. And the last one is that inadequate pre-acquisition screening. Might be there is not possibility for a firm to screen thoroughly the another firm. It goes for this statement goes for the both firms. Both firms couldn't screen thoroughly before the deal. But what are the advantages? On the other hand, if you talk about the greenfield investment, what are the advantages associated with the greenfield investment? It gives the firms a greater ability to build the kind of subsidiary company that it wants. However, greenfield ventures are slower to establish. Greenfield ventures are also risky. It's risky, takes longer time. But the important thing is it gives a more control to the company on its production unit, on the production, on its own strategies, and especially on its ownership. Acquisition is the better when the market already has well-established competitors. When the market concentration is really high, then this mode of entry is really good, this acquiring. When global competitors are interested in building a market presence, and there is a possibility, because in continuation of the competition, if the global competitors intend to enter in the market as well, then this strategy of acquiring another firm is more suitable. A greenfield venture may be better when a firm needs to transfer organizational embedded competitiveness, skill, routine, and culture. When firms intend to transfer its organizational skill or organizationally embedded competitiveness, like in culture or management skills or routine, these things, then it's better to establish its own unit there through the greenfield investment. Choice of strategic partner, structure, and managing. These are the three steps the firm have to do when they choose a partner for the strategic alliance. The first thing is to choose a right strategic partner. The second thing is what the strategic partnership structure should be, and the third one is how they are going to manage this relationship, the partnership relationship with in the future. And the most important point within the is the trust factor, and there should be a legal binding and a strong contract between each other, that they are not going to steal the technology, and both of them will be benefited equally, both companies. These are the thing, and for managing, the trust is a really important factor. Now we have discussed the exporting procedures, three modes of export and import interaction. When the importer and exporter interact with each other, they directly interact with each other, and basically these three modes of interaction in terms of payment across exporter and importer. It's before either exporter can pay for importer can pay first, and then exporter is going to ship the machine, or they're going to ship the products. Or second thing is might be exporter is going to ship first, and then importer is going to pay the money. Or the third thing is they are going to interdependent with each other through the help of a third party. Third party means the banks. Through the bank or letter of credit and draft, they can do with the help of both banks in their own countries, they can make the transaction. Okay, globalization. Globalization seems to be the exception. Now we talk about the globalization and markets. Globalization seems to be the exception rather than the rule in many consumer goods market and industrial markets. Procter & Gamble still customizes the final product offering and market strategy to the condition that pertain in the individual national markets. Globalization seems to the exception rather than the rule in many consumer goods. Now we will talk about the globalization and market. We have discussed the impact of recent financial reforms across the developing countries, and because of this thing, as the outcome of these reforms, many developing countries has changed or has changed their status from the control economy to the market economy. And because of the globalization, because of this advent of the information technology, markets are converging towards each other. They are integrating with each other, and this is the one way to see the global market. And one school of thought, they are saying this, that markets across the countries are integrating, are getting together, and they are sharing the similar trades across the globe. But on the other hand, there is a school of thought who is saying that despite the convergence of market trends, market trades, market features, despite these things, there are some ubiquitous characteristics associated with each market in the country. And because of these characteristics distinguish each market from each other. And that school of thought says that companies, although they have to consider the globalization, the integrated features of the local markets as well, but they have to consider the differentiating characteristics of each market as well when they are going to make some or formulate some strategy. Okay, you guys have definitely, I'm sure that you guys have read this concept of marketing mix in the basic marketing course. The marketing mix is comprised of, it's a choice of a firm offer to a targeted market. Is comprised of product attributes, distribution strategy, communication strategy, and the pricing strategy. These are the four different components of the marketing mix. Okay, considering you have seen, you have, I'm sure, okay, you have done this thing before, but this is just a quick question. Are markets and brands becoming global, like we discussed? Because of the IT, internet, and this media, and these things, markets are getting together or not, they are integrating or not. In the answer of this question, Theodore Levitt argued that, this is a scholar who argued that the world markets are becoming increasingly similar market. It unnecessary to localize the marketing mix. Is Levitt right? Probably not. Levitt's theory has become a lightning rod in the debate about globalization. The things that we had discussed, because of these media and internet, the advent of these technologies, Theodore Levitt is arguing that the the market across the globe, they are integrated with each other. They are converging. They have already converged towards a single market features, and there is unnecessary to localize the marketing mix. These four features of the marketing mix should be similar, should be standardized across the market, across the globe. But this notion has stirred long debate or hot debate among the scholars, and they say that they are arguing this thing. Might be this notion is not 100% correct. There are certain things which are associated with each market, and those features distinguish each market from others. The current consensus is that while the world is moving towards global market, global standardization is not possible because cultural differences among nations, economic differences among nations, trade barriers, differences in product and technical standards. Okay, The second school of thought, like we discussed in the last slide, they are arguing that the Theodore Levitt is not right because of these 4 points. Because each market has its own culture and its own, which is the outcome of, culture. Each market, each country has its own culture. That nation have their cultures and its values and standards and norms. And because of these, because of the differences across the culture, there are certain differences across the countries. And these cultural differences across the countries make the market demand, market behavior entirely different from the other markets. And this is the first distinguishing facets of the market. And the second one is economic differences. Some markets are because of some countries, they are well developed, and because of the development they have economic situation is really good, and their GDP, the buying power, their everything, the consumers, the market advertisement strategies, the distribution strategies, the distribution agents, individuals, these are different in developed countries as compared to developing countries. And because of these economic differences, countries' markets are different. The third one is the trade barrier. There are different trade agreements across the countries. Each country has its own policy about the trade, and these policies can vary with country to country. Certain countries are good terms with each other, and they have good trade relationship with each other, and they can have a healthy trade or good trade between each other. But there are certain countries who have trade barriers with each other, and because of these trade barriers, we cannot say this thing that and we cannot treat all countries equally and in a similar manner. The last one is the differences in product and technical standards. Product and technical standards, product standard and technical standards are different across the countries. Like we can say that product expectation in developing countries and developed countries are different. Might be we could say this thing in developing countries, people are more concerned with the price and reliability as compared to the fascinating features of that product. And technical standards, some countries are really technology-wise they are really advanced, and certain countries are really lagging behind in technology. And because of these things, of course, the marketing mix, because of these 4 features, the marketing mix should be different and should be localized on the basis of the market features. Okay, because of these differences across the countries, the first factor they are saying, and within the market they do the market segmentation. Market segmentation is identifying distinct groups of consumers whose purchasing behavior differ from other in important ways. Markets can be segmented by the geographically, demography. These markets can be segmented by geography, demography, social-cultural factor, and psychological factors. These are the different bases on which markets can be divided, and the company can cater on these different divisions of the market differently. 2 key market segmentation issue. The differences between countries in the structure of market segments may have to develop a unique marketing mix to appeal to a certain segment in a given country. The differences between countries in the structure of market segments. The existence of market is the existence of segments that transcends national borders. When segments transcend national border, a global strategy is possible. Okay, the first one. Within the marketing mix, the difference between the countries in the structure of marketing, despite they have a single market segmentation, for instance, on the basis of age, in one market, one company A is serving they market on the basis of age, and they are serving people, for instance, the customers above 40 years old. And in the another country, they are using the same market segmentation on the basis of age, and they are serving people or customers above 40 years old in a separate way. And but even despite the first point is saying, despite this similar segmentation strategy, despite this thing, there should be some differences between the consumers' expectation and consumer demands of those category. When people are 40 years old above, 40 and 40 years old above, and in this country and this country, their expectation and their buying pattern can be different, despite the company is treating them separately. And the second thing is, they are saying in the second point, the existence of segment that transcend national border is might be when they make this strategy and they make the segmentation across in each different country, might be they are facing similar trend and similar buying pattern and similar market trend. Can be different, can be similar across the countries, and because the market trend is getting similar, the existence of this segmentation can transcend across the national borders, and companies can use similar the strategy. They can make a similar marketing mix. In the first case, because despite they have a similar market segmentation, but the company is using different marketing mix. The companies have to follow a different marketing. In the second one, it's claiming that because they are from the market segments are behaving similarly, that's why these segments are transcending across the border, and the similar marketing mix can be applied in both markets in those segments. Okay, this is the typical example of type of firms and segmentation base and possible market segments. The first one is the type of the firm is the banking, and segmentation base is demographic segmentation. This is the most typical segmentation base that we see. Possible market segments: the young couples, young families, older families, pre-retirement and retired. If we consider each possible market segment, if we think about banks in our surrounding, even in Pakistan, they are treating and they have their packages or something. We can say that they have their way of dealing, the schemes or the products that they are offering, services they are offering to young people, to young families, older family and retired people. They are different. I mean, their package has some sort of service schemes. They are different across the age-wise, and they are saying that retired people, pre-retirement, the families and young couples. Mobile phone carrier, these companies, they are using the segmentation base as benefit segmentation. And possible market segments are highly social, work-oriented, safety contact, status symbol. These are the different market segmentation, possible market segmentation, which is done on the basis of benefit segmentation. The base of segmentation is benefit segmentation. What sort of benefits, what degree of benefits they are providing, and it depends on what sort of benefits they are providing in each their service. Frozen food manufacturers, a broad mix is used here: demographic segmentation, psychographic segmentation, behavioral segmentation. Single households, diet conscious, family dining, parties, budget conscious and variety seekers. These are the different market segmentation, possible market segmentation from the frozen food manufacturers. And they are using three different type of basic market segmentation. Toothpaste, to benefit segmentation. The base of segmentation is benefit segmentation. The possible market segmentation is the teeth whitening, sensitive teeth, fresh breath, cavity protection, and tartar control. These are the different sort of possible market segmentation. Restaurant behavioral segmentation is the obvious segmentation base for the restaurants. They are regulars, special occasions, business lunch, quick spot. Okay, how do product attributes influence marketing strategy? A product is like a bundle of attributes. Products sell when their attributes match consumer needs. It's obvious. If consumer needs were the same everywhere, firm could sell the same product everywhere. But consumer needs depend on culture. This is the first thing. Okay, how product attributes. Now we are talking about the different attributes of the product and how this attribute of the product can affect on the marketing strategy. Consumer needs depends. The first thing that we are saying, if the consumer need across the globe is similar, they can use the same product and same marketing strategy across the countries, across the market. But the problem is consumers' taste, consumer demand is different, and it depends on the first factor which it depends on. It is culture. In culture, tradition, social structure, language, religion, education. These are the different elements which comprise of culture, which shape the culture and which shape the consumer needs. For example, Findus frozen food division of Nestle, the Swiss food giant, market frozen fish cakes and fish fingers in UK, and parallelly they are they are marketing beef bourguignon in France and Bravillo in Italy. The thing is, they are serving these three different markets on the basis of their local taste and their traditions. Similarly, Coca-Cola markets Georgia a cold coffee in Japan based on a traditional taste, but they are not serving this Georgia to other markets. The second factor is level of economic development. Consumers, the choice of products of the consumer is also depends on the level of economic development. Consumer in highly developed countries tend to demand a lot extra performance attributes in product. Price is not a factor due to high income level. They are not concerned with the price. What they want to see, want to see extra features, and because of these may want to get benefited from and they want some extra innovation or some uniqueness in the product. And we had discussed one case study in the earlier lectures that this was the only reason, because this Sony Ericsson, this Ericsson and Electrolux and these two special companies, they have faced extra demand, extra expectation from the local consumer in the Scandinavia, and because of this extra demand from the consumers, they were forced to innovate, and because of this demand and because of this innovation, they could able to innovate the new technologies in the cellular phones. On the other hand, in less developed countries, people are more concerned because of the low income level. They are more concerned about the price of the products, and they tend to prefer the basic products, and the price is really important thing for them. Like for example, in the example of the cars, no air conditioning, power steering, power windows, radio, and cassette player. They in low developed countries, in less developed countries, consumers are not so much concerned with the air conditioning, power steering, power windows, radio, and cassette players. Rather, they are more concerned with the reliability. Considering this is the one aspect, and considering the markets are converging with each other, even now in the developing economies, people are getting more. Their income level is getting higher, and because of this buying power, they are also now more and more increasingly concerned with these extra features of air conditioning and power steering and these sort of things, and they can pay extra price for these features, just like in developed countries. The third factor is product and technical standards. National differences can force firms to customize the marketing mix. The last one is distribution strategy. Distribution strategy is also another factor which can shape the firms, the consumer demand, and which ultimately affects the marketing strategy. Distribution strategy means the firm chooses for delivering the product to the consumer. How a product is delivered depends on the firm's market entry strategy. These are the firm things. Firms that produce locally can sell directly to the consumer, to the retailer or to the wholesaler. Firms that produce outside the country have the same options plus the option of selling to an import agent. Now we are talking about the exporter and importer. People who are producing their products in the local market, they have the option to directly sell to the consumer, retailer or the wholesaler. But if that company is producing their product to the in the another country, they have the option, they have these three options, and they have the fourth option as well, which is the use of import agents who are going to distribute the products to the consumers. Okay, graphically we can show this distribution strategy in this way. The manufacturer, the left hand side, the manufacturer inside the country, they can directly go to the final customer, they can go to the retail distributor, they can go to the wholesale distributor as well. When the firm is producing those products outside the country, they have these options as well: wholesale distributor, retail distributor and final customer. But in addition to these three windows, they have another option as well, which is the import agent. An import agent again can give to the directly to the wholesale distributor, retail distributor and final customer. Okay, now this is a really interesting small case study. We should say that how a firm have done the market segmentation. This is the case study that we are going to see quickly, and it's a really interesting one. Let's start this one. Brazil is home of the largest black population outside of Nigeria. Nearly half of the 160 million people in Brazil are of African or mixed race origin. This is the market segment. We are going to talk about the market segmentation on the basis of race. Despite this, until recently, businesses have made little effort to target this numerically large segment. Part of the reason is rooted in economics. Black Brazilians have historically been poorer than Brazilians of European origin and thus have not received the same attention as whites. But after a decade of relatively strong economic performance in Brazil, an emerging black middle class is beginning to command the attention of the consumer product companies. To take advantage of this, companies such as Unilever have introduced a range of skincare products and the cosmetics aimed at black Brazilians, and Brazil's largest toy company has introduced a black Barbie-like doll, Suzy Olodum, sales of which quickly caught up with the sales of a similar white doll. But there is some of the issues than simple economics. Unlike the United States, where a protected history of the racial discrimination gave birth to the civil rights movement, fostered black awareness and produced an identifiable subculture in US society, the history of blacks in Brazil have been very different. Although the Brazil did not abolish slavery until 1888, racism in Brazil has historically been much subtler than in the United States. Brazil has never excluded black from voting or had a tradition of segregation the race. Historically too, the government encouraged intermarriage between the white and blacks in order to bleach society. Partly due to this more benign history, Brazil has not had a black right movement similar to that in the United States, and racial self-identification is much weaker. Surveys routinely find that African Brazilian consumers decline to categorize themselves as either black or white. Instead, they choose one of dozens of skin tones and see themselves as being part of the culture that transcends race. This subtler racial dynamic has important implications for the market segmentation and tailoring the marketing mix in Brazil. Unilever had to face this issue when launching a Vaseline intensive care lotion for black consumers in Brazil. The company learned in focus group that for the product to resonate with non-white women, its promotion had to feature women of different skin tones, excluding neither whites nor black. The campaign Unilever devised features 3 women with different skin shades at the fitness centers. The bottle says the lotion is for tan and black skin. The description that could include many white women, considering that much of the population lives near the beach. Unilever learned that the segment exists, but it is more difficult to define and requires more subtle marketing messages than the Afro-American segment in the United States or middle-class segments in Africa. Okay, what we have learned from this case study is this small story of market segmentation in Brazil. This that Unilever has experience of market segmentation on the basis of race or on the basis of color in USA, and they tried to do the same thing in the Brazil, but they couldn't do it, but rather they had to adopt a different market segmentation because of the culture and historical trends and the differences between the black and white. Unlike the USA, where the black had to start the social right movement, and they were severely punished in in their rights, and they were deprived from their rights in the society. The Brazilian society was different, and in Brazil the white and black people were mixed, despite they have in majority in Brazil. Despite this thing, they were mixed, interrelated with each other, and they were mixed, and they don't have the sharp distinction between each other, and therefore the Unilever couldn't use the same market segmentation in Brazil. Rather, what they did, they devised a slight market segmentation, and they use the they use the dark tone and black skin, the product for the dark tan and black skin people. And even in their advertisement, they didn't use only the black skin people. Rather, what they did the dark shades of models with the different dark shades, and they even the caption they have written on the bottle of lotion is tan and black skin, and which could use the white people who are living near to beaches and who have the tan color. They could use the same their product. The important thing is, because of this traditional culture and tradition and culture and history, the market segmentation which they have applied in one country was not possible to use the same market segmentation in the another market. How do distribution system differ? Okay, now we talk about the distribution system. There are 4 main differences in distribution system. The first one is a retail concentration, which is concentrated or fragmented. Retail concentration. Concentrated retail system is a few retailers supply most of the market. Concentrated market segmentation mean only a few players are they exist in the market and they have captured the market. Common in developed countries. Contributing factors: increase in car ownership, number of households with refrigerators and freezers, two-income households. Because of this thing, there are only few market players, and they are saying why there is more concentration in the developed markets for instance retailers is because of the car ownership, number of households with the refrigerators, and the two people, more than one people are earners. The fragmented retail system. There are many retailers, no one of which has a major share of the market. Common in developing countries. This is we don't have that too many big time malls and big time stores. Rather, what we have the small mom and dad shops of retailers, and that's why the market concentration is low. The second one is channel length, the number of intermediaries between the producer and the consumers. People who are involved within the producer and the consumer. If there is a channel is really many people are involved, then that channel is considered as lengthy, and if the number of people involved between the producer and consumer is less, then there is a short channel. Important thing is we should know this thing, that the price of the product depends on the length of the channel. If there are a lot of people involved, 2, 3, 4 people are involved between the producer and the consumer, then everybody is going to take their own some premium, some advantage, and they are going to sell more charge more extra price on the product, and ultimately the consumer is going to bear all the cost. When the producer sells directly to the consumer, common with concentrated system, this is there is a chance that a direct producer is going to directly sell to the consumer, and in that case the price is minimum, and this is most common in concentrated markets. Long channel, when the producer sells through an import agent, a wholesaler, and the retailer, common with the fragmented retail systems. And like we know this thing, that the concept of retail producer, फिर बीच में आड़ती आता है, फिर होलसेल वाला आ रहा है, फिर रिटेलर आ रहा है, 4 सेगमेंट. व्हाट इफ के producer, जो people who are producing those products, they are directly sell to the consumer. जो भी entity बीच में है, आड़ती की, रिटेलर की, होलसेल वाले की और रिटेलर की, हर कोई अपना बीच में प्रॉफिट है. each bar everyone is trying to set some premium on that price on that product, and they are going to, and वो सब चीज़ हमारे consumer is going to pay there. They have to bear the price, extra price. They pile up together these premiums, and में क्या होता है कि retailer जो है, that person is going to charge from the consumer. The third one is channel exclusivity. How difficult it is for outsiders to access. This is the main important thing. Japan system is very exclusive system, difficult for a new firm to get shelf space as compared to the old firm. Channel exclusivity. The fourth one is channel quality, the expertise, competencies, and the skills of established retailer in a nation, and their ability to sell and support the products of international business. Good in most developed countries, but variable in emerging market and less developed countries. If the channels really expertise, have competency and skill of established retailer in the nation, then the distribution channel, the system would be different. It's most often we see this thing, the quality is more higher in the developed countries. Firms may have to devote considerable resources to upgrade the channel quality. Firm, in order to provide and in order to reduce the cost, they have to spend some significant amount of money to improve the channel quality. Which distribution strategy should a firm choose? Now this is the question. The optimal strategy depends on the relative costs and benefits of each alternative. When price is important, mean they have to compare the price and cost of the each distribution channel and then decide which one is offering the least cost and where firm is getting most maximum benefit. When price is important, a shorter channel is better. Each intermediary is in the channel adds its own markup to the product. When a retail sector is very fragmented, a long channel can be beneficial. Economies on a selling cost can offer access to exclusive channels. These are the two things when retail sector is very fragmented. A long channel can be beneficial. When economy on the selling economizes the selling cost, can offer access to exclusive channel. These are the two benefits that going to get. Why is communication strategy is important? Communicating product attributes to prospective customers is a crucial element in the marketing mix. How a firm communicates with customer depends partly on the choice of channel. How a firm communicates with customer depends partly on the choice of channel. Communicating channels available to a firm include direct selling, sales promotion, direct marketing, and advertisement. These are the 4 ways how a firm can communicate with its customers. Okay, now we talk about, there is another small description of a firm's marketing strategy, and we are going to talk about this. The Polarized introduced its SX70 instant camera in Europe. Polarized is the name of the company. We have seen the polarized camera at least in 10 years ago or 2 decades ago. We have this. The time when we don't have the camera, these mobiles, and at that time the cameras were very famous. Nowadays we have the digital camera, but back then we have the camera in which we have to insert a film, and then we have to develop those pictures, those films, and we are talking about that sort of cameras. In SX70 instant camera in Europe in the mid-70s with the same marketing strategy, TV commercials and the print ads it had used in North America. Now what it's talking about, the same marketing strategy Polarized is using what is used in the USA to market its camera SX70 through the print media, TV and print ads. Polarized's headquarters believe the camera served a universal need. What is the need? The pleasure of instant photography, and that the communication strategy should be the same around the world. The television commercials features testimonial of the personalities well known in the United States. Few of these personalities were known in Europe. However, the managers of the Polarized's European operations pointed this out to headquarters. Okay, unperturbed by these concerns, headquarters management set strict guidelines to discourage deviation from the global plan. The European personnel were proved correct. The testimonial by unknown personalities left consumers cold. The commercials failed to raise the awareness of the Polarized instant camera. Even though the camera later became successful in Europe, local management believes the misguided introductory campaign in no way helped its performance. The lesson was remembered a decade later when Polarized European management launched a pan-European program to reposition Polarized instant photography from the party camera platform to serious utilitarian platform. This time headquarters did not assume it had the answers. Important thing is in the first instance what they are talking about, that Polarized they try to use the same marketing strategy what they use in the USA. They try to use the same in the Europe, because they have the claim in their mind that what they are doing, they introduce this camera for the pleasure of the people, and it should be the same around the world. And in that purpose, in this regard, they were using some in their advertisement they were showing some celebrities, and they are presenting some celebrities which were well known in the USA, but some of them were known in the Europe as well, and they were promoting their product, their camera, but the response from the people were cold, and those advertisements didn't get their results. But later on they could get the success, but they learned the lesson. And the next time when they tried to introduce the instant camera across the Europe, pan-European program, in which they tried to recognize the differences across the countries as well. This time they tried to focus on the cultural differences across the countries. Instead, it looks for the inspiration in the various advertising practices of the European subsidiaries, and it found out in the strategy of one of the smallest subsidiaries in Switzerland. With considerable success, the Swiss subsidiary had promoted the functional uses of instant photography as a means of communicating with family and friends. A task force was set up to test this concept in other markets. The test showed that the Swiss strategy was transformable and that it produced the desired impact. Thus was born Europe's Learn to Speak Polarized campaign, one of the firm's most successful advertising efforts. Non-European subsidiaries, including those in Japan and Australia, liked the strategy so much that they adopted it. In what they did, they tried to find out the local taste and local expectation from the advertisements, and in doing so, company searched this marketing strategy, advertising strategy within its foreign subsidiaries, European subsidiaries, and it find out in the Switzerland, the smallest subsidiary in Switzerland, and the conceivers, and they tried to promote this camera through the Swiss subsidiary, and it went good. And then they extended this advertisement, this strategy to the other European countries, other European subsidiaries, and they adopted this scheme of promotion. What made this campaign different from now the thing is, these are the two different things, because the second it gets so successful, the Swiss subsidiary campaign, it got so successful that even the non-European subsidiaries of Japan and Australia, they adopted the same strategy, and they got success. Now they are trying to compare the strategies when they did with the SX70 in mid-70s. When at that time when they tried to adopt the same strategy, a US strategy, to the Europe, it failed. And now, when within the Europe and even across the Europe, they were using and they were trying to use the same promotion strategy, and this time it get success. Why there is a difference at that time with SX70 and with the polarized camera? Okay, the last column discusses about the difference between the campaigns. What made this campaign different from the SX70 campaign a decade earlier was the decentralized decision making. Instead of headquarters imposing on Europe an advertising campaign developed in the United States, the European subsidiaries developed its own campaign. That's the first difference. That at that time in mid-70s, the headquarters, which was in the USA, they imposed their marketing campaign on the European subsidiaries. But on the other hand, later on, about the polarized camera, the headquarters allowed their foreign subsidiaries, European subsidiaries, to make their own campaign according to the local demands and local expectation. Okay, the second thing, equally important, Even after the pan-European program was adopted, European managers had the freedom to adopt the campaign to local tastes and needs. The second thing, despite that across the European countries, people are adopting the same switch strategies in other countries, the campaign, but they were allowed to alter those campaign, those advertisement according to the taste of the local markets. For example, where tests show that the learn to speak polarized tag did not convey the intended meanings in the local language, the subsidiary was free to change it. Tag did not convey the intended meaning in the local language, the subsidiary was free to change it. Very important thing. Despite they have this logo or the tag, the main statement, learn to speak polarized. This was the main leading this campaign statement, the tag statement. And even then they are saying that despite that, when you are changing, when using the same tag, the same campaign across the European countries, but because of the language differences, might be in other country, might be people or the local markets are not going to get this message. They are not familiar, or might be they are not going to absorb this message. What those subsidiaries can do, they can change it. They were free, and they had the independence, and they had the freedom, the local managers, to change this statement, this tag statement, according to the local and people's demands. By adopting this approach, polarized reaped some benefits of standardization, standardized advertisements, while it customized its message to local conditions when they proved necessary. Main important thing is, despite this is the pan-European campaign, and they want to have the standardization across the European countries, they were allowed to have some modification in accordance with the demand of the local markets. This was the message that we learned, that the control from the headquarters, and in the second scenario was the freedom and independence was given to the local subsidiaries to change according to the, despite they were having a standardization, even in despite this thing, beside the standardization, they have the localization as well within the demand, within this campaign. Okay. Now we talk about what are these are the three barriers of internal communication. We quickly go through these barriers, and importantly, we are going to do these barriers in more detail in the next lecture. But considering these three barriers were more important, relevant with this case study, this camera campaign case study, that's why we are doing it. But we are just touching these main points, and thoroughly we are going in the next lecture. The effectiveness of the firm's international communication can be jeopardized by cultural barriers. It can be difficult to communicate message across culture, like we have seen in the independence or freedom to change the tagline. Might be people were difficult to communicate messages because of the cultural differences, and that's why the headquarters allowed the local foreign subsidiaries to change according to the demands of the local market. A message that means one thing in one country may mean something quite different in another country. Firms need to develop cross-cultural literacy, and they use local input when they're developing markets messages. The second one is source and country of origin effects. Source effects occur when the receiver of the message, and the second one is the country of origin effect. The extent to which the place of manufacturing influences product evaluation, and these 2 points are though did not affect to this case study. Sources are because the European countries, they didn't have some feelings for anti-feeling for the US products of this camera, and that's why this is not directly affect. But of course they have it can affect positively, like they have the European market, they have the image about the US companies, that this camera company of the US is technologically good, and the US products are high quality products, and that company got that message, and source and country, this is the effect of the source country. Noise level, the amount of other messages competing for the potential consumer attention. This was not directly relevant to our course case study. We will do it thoroughly in the next lecture. Okay, now we quickly go through the main points of our lecture. We had discussed about the globalization. Globalization seems to the exception rather than the rule in many consumer good market and industrial market. The marketing, then we had discussed about the marketing mix, which comprised of product attributes, distribution strategy, communication strategy, and pricing strategy. Market segmentation, identifying distinct group of consumers whose purchasing behavior differs from other in important ways. Markets can be segmented by geography, demography, sociocultural factors, and psychological factors. Two key market segmentation issues. The differences between countries in the structure of market segments may have to develop a unique marketing mix to appeal to a certain segment in a given country. The existence of segments that transcend national borders. When segments transcend national borders, a global strategy is possible. Culture, tradition, social culture, language, religion, education are the main important of the culture, and the level of economic development is another factor that can shape the market demand, consumer demands. The third one, the product and technical standards. This is the third one, and the distribution strategy. This is another factor that can also affect on the consumer demand. There are four main differences in the distribution system. Retail concentration, in which the channel length, channel exclusivity, channel quality, the effectiveness of a firm's international communication can be jeopardized by cultural barriers, and it can be difficult to communicate message across cultural sources, and country of region can affect, country of region effects, and the noise effect. These are the four things that can be useful in making the marketing strategy. Thank you for today. Allah Hafiz.